But first, what's making news? And multiple new images of Chinese spy balloons have been identified over Japan and Taiwan. Tokyo has vowed to intercept and destroy balloons if detected trespassing in Japanese airspace. US-China's relations were thrown into turmoil earlier this year when an alleged Chinese spy balloon was shot down off the US coast. China claimed it was a civilian airship used for scientific research. For more, we're joined now from Beijing by the Wall Street Journal's China Bureau Chief, Jonathan Cheng. Jonathan, welcome to China Tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So how is China's government responding to the spy balloon's claims?
Well, obviously, this is not something that China is particularly keen to talk about. Joe Biden has said that he thinks it was an embarrassment and partly accidental on China's behalf, and obviously at a time when bilateral relations are so fragile, and at a time when China, I think, does on many levels want to put a floor under the relationship, as the U.S. has said. I think they both share an interest in doing that right now. I think it is not the sort of thing that they want to be talking about. At the same time, if the U.S. claims are true, this was a balloon packed with surveillance equipment, and our reporters in Washington had just reported this, right? That when they recovered the balloon that they shot down, they found all sorts of surveillance equipment that made it very clear this is not a weather balloon, as China is saying. I think it's not something that China is going to want to talk about. They are sticking to their line that this was a weather balloon, that this wasn't meant to float over the U.S., and I think they'd rather talk about other things.
China has thrown its support behind Russia after a brief mutiny posed the gravest challenge to President Vladimir Putin. China's foreign minister met with Russia's deputy foreign minister after the failure of the Wagner coup. In a statement, Beijing supports Moscow's efforts to stabilize the situation in the aftermath of the rebellion. Jonathan, China appears to be pretty consistent when it comes to its position on Russian affairs. But will the Wagner coup change President Xi's view on Putin's leadership?
It's a great question. And to be honest, I think people here in Beijing are asking the same questions that people in Washington, perhaps even people in Moscow, are asking, which is, what exactly happened here? And we've seen reporting that's come out since the weekend coup attempt, rather, I should say. I think we're still trying to put together the pieces here. And I think China is as well. I think the biggest concern for China on this is whether or not Vladimir Putin, who Xi Jinping has really built a really strong personal relationship with. They've met 40 times as heads of state, and they celebrate one another's birthdays. Xi Jinping was in Moscow just a few months ago, and of course right before the invasion began, Vladimir Putin was in Beijing. I think for him, for the two men, I should say, I think the most important thing is just having stability. I think what Putin wants to see is China unwavering in backing it, because it is isolated in the West, and it helps to have another UN Security Council permanent member, the world's second largest economy and now second largest population, nuclear armed, at its back.
The Chinese capital is sweltering through a heat wave, with temperatures soaring to more than 40 degrees Celsius. The scorching heat forced authorities to issue warnings, and numerous provinces raised their hot weather alert to red, the highest in China's four-tier warning system. The capital's population of 22 million had never logged 3 straight days above 40 degrees. There are fears the hot weather could lead to crop failures. Jonathan, you're in Beijing right now. How are you keeping cool?
It is very hot. In fact, it's been more than 40 degrees for the better part of 2 weeks. We have had a little bit of rain come here and there, but no question, this has been a remarkable summer here in Beijing. And I think across northern China, a lot of people are wondering whether this is the future. Keep in mind, of course, we've had power outages regularly sweeping across China over the past 2 summers, and neither of those summers did we get heat as severe as we've had here in Beijing over the last few weeks. And again, this is not guaranteeing that we're going to have a summer like this. It could just be an abnormal peak at the beginning. But I think if this holds throughout the summer, we'll see more power outages and more concern in Beijing about energy security. China is, in general, very concerned about security in all realms. Obviously, national security, food security, energy security. And energy security has really been rising in its agenda here. And so if you see that happen again this summer, I think we'll start to see more of a priority put on that.
Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on China Tonight.
Thanks for having me.
China's digital currency is being used in cities across the country, and now thousands of workers at state-owned enterprises are being paid their wages in the digital yuan.
The currency, which was first trialled in 2019, is issued by China's central bank, and authorities say the system will help combat fraud.
But critics say it will increase surveillance on citizens. Ilham Isaac has the story.
China is already well on the verge of becoming a cash-free society. But now, the world's second-largest economy seems determined to render its currency completely digital. Since last year, trials have been underway in cities across China for a new form of money known as CBDC.
So a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. CBDCs were designed to allow the central banks more oversight into the financial system.
现在就是多了一个付款方式嘛，而且他们不收手续费哦，我们肯定很乐意的。
But for the Chinese government, wider adoption of digital yuan means taking back control of the country's economic activities from WeChat and Alipay, two super apps that process around 95% of digital payments in China.
You can very much, looking back at the recent history of things, see CBDC and in particular ACNY in this context as a response to the dominance of WeChat Pay and Alipay.
In 2020, China abruptly blocked the initial public offering of Ant Group, the behemoth behind Alipay, at the last minute.
What has happened since that suspension of the IPO for Ant Group is that we've seen Chinese authorities effectively try to clip the wings of these companies by forcing them to be more integrated within the centrally controlled financial system and basically share their data more openly and freely with the central government authorities. What this means in practice is that effectively the People's Bank of China, China's central bank, now has a data center that basically houses all transactions that happen in the economy.
The central bank will know who's paying, how much they're paying, when they're paying, where they're paying, and then to analyze the patterns of payment.
Another major concern surrounding the digital yuan is its ability to be programmed, as is proudly outlined in its white paper.
We know enough about digital currencies and CBDCs to hypothesize that Chinese government could effectively boycott certain foreign companies or individuals, or even their own domestic companies or individuals, by blocking transactions or using or programming the ECNY to basically vanish from people's accounts in protest of certain individuals or companies or institutions.
However, China's ambitions surrounding CBDC is not limited to asserting control within its borders. In recent months, China has been launching trials and pilot programs to test the usability of digital yuan in international trade. One such project is a multiple CBDC platform known as Project Mbridge.
It is a collaboration of the People's Bank of China and the central banks in Hong Kong, United Arab Emirates, Thailand, as well as the Bank for International Settlements.
Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the West introduced unprecedented sanctions against Russia, including cutting Russia's access to the global dollar-based payment system known as SWIFT, and Beijing was quietly taking note.
So the SWIFT and financial related sanctions against Russia definitely have been a shot across the bow for the Chinese authorities because they are still reliant very much on SWIFT-based settlement for trade and for transactions. They also hold large amounts of US treasuries within their FX reserves. So China is still very much dependent on this US-based financial system.
And China has been making progress in diminishing its reliance on US dollar.
Saudi Arabia is in discussions with China to price some of its oil sales in yuan.
Last month, Argentina announced that they would start paying for imports using the Chinese yuan due to their shortage of dollars. And Brazil followed suit, announcing that it will allow companies to trade in yuan as well.
However, with US dollars still accounting for 84% of global trade compared to yuan's 4.5%, experts believe that the RMB, China's national currency, is still a long way from challenging the dollar's dominance in global trade. even with the aid of digital yuan.
So the story of China's renminbi internationalization using ECNY is complicated, and it's one that will take time to unfold. Certainly, a lot of observers and critics talk about how this could threaten dollar dominance, but looking at the technological capabilities and China's state as a closed capital account, this seems to be a pretty overblown conclusion.
That said, the bottom line is, out of the 114 countries that are actively exploring their own CBDC, China is by far the most advanced in the pack by a huge margin.
I think that the Western countries should be involved in a more multilateral framework involving the US to try to set standards for central bank digital currencies in a way that protects their own citizens from potential data surveillance or cyber espionage, which in this digital age will become increasingly problematic for governments around the world.
Sam, this is a really hot topic right now, especially as China's coming out of the pandemic and tourists are going in again. My family's trying to organise a trip and it's really hard to spend our money there without opening a bank account and having digital apps like WeChat.
Yeah, it's pretty much a cashless society now. Everything is paid through WeChat or Alipay, no wonder the central bank is nervous about it.
And speaking of spending digital cash, I saw that you've been dabbling in crypto.
Well, I have actually invested in some Chinese crypto coins, but they all went down to zero.
Oh, no.
Should have invested in digital yuan.
To what's trending, and a report out of Korea about no kid zones has sparked much discussion on Weibo. In a country with the lowest fertility rate in the world, it would seem somewhat counterproductive to bar children from cafes and restaurants. I mean, technically, all of China is currently a no-kid zone. No-kid zones are becoming increasingly popular in South Korea. There are hundreds of places across the country ensuring peaceful environments for grown-ups.
The so-called inability to teach or manage children is due to parents giving up.
By the way, most of the time, children are accompanied by women and the elderly. Banning children indirectly bans them as well. So, who ultimately gets to enjoy a comfortable environment? Think about it.
If I may borrow my answer from TikTok, I think banning women, children, and the elderly from public spaces would result in something like this. A woman has been slammed after a video of her went viral, showing her taking a selfie with an injured tourist in the background. As Weibo reports, one woman fell into a ditch while another fell from grace, all in the pursuit of the perfect selfie.
What an eerie smile. Scary even.
She probably wanted to post it on WeChat. Darn WeChat.
Many people are pathologically obsessed with posting selfies on social media.
Hardly. I don't think I've taken a selfie for weeks. Should we go back to that smoothie place?
Oh yeah, that place was really nice.
Sam! Oh my god. Do you want one? Yeah, come, get one, yeah.
Stand-up comedians are used to being in the spotlight. It's part of their job. But in China, comedians are gaining attention for all the wrong reasons. A CCP crackdown is affecting both performers and audiences, and has many wondering if stand-up comedy has a future against government censorship. Our resident comedian Louey takes a look.
I don't even have time to take a sh**.
I reckon you're perverts.
Licking In China, I'd probably get arrested for everything I just said. Just ask comedian Li Haoshi, better known by his stage name House. He was arrested after using a military slogan to describe the behaviour of his dogs. Fight to win, forge exemplary conduct was a punchline unveiled by Xi Jinping to praise the PLA back in 2013. And in 2021, China enacted a law criminalising insults against the military. Li hasn't been seen since and could face a potential prison sentence. Yeah, all right, I'll get back to the jokes in a second, okay? Meanwhile, the company that hired him has been slapped with a 14.7 million yuan fine. That equates to about 3 million Australian dollars. An amount foreign to comedians considering we're mostly paid in drinks. Ooh, don't mind if I do. It's all part of China's so-called cultural law enforcement to bring all forms of cultural entertainment in line with government policy. It's spreading fear among performers, prompting some comedy operators to stick to safe topics or cancel shows entirely.
So in this case, it's someone in the audience who recorded the joke and posted on social media. And once this story begins to brew on social media, state media then steps in, and the entire narrative around House has turned into essentially a nationalistic orgy, drowning any opposite viewpoints.
The crime would generally be categorized into jeopardizing national interest, and we know that the idea of national interest can be really broad and can be ambiguously defined.
Even viewers have been caught up in the crossfire, with one woman detained for defending Li Haoshi in an online post. Government agents are even showing up to comedy shows undercover. What are you looking at? It's not me. Mind your own business. I spoke to one comedian in Hong Kong, but due to safety concerns, we're not able to reveal their identity. So here I am interviewing a mysterious Shadow instead. Hey Shadow. Actually, do you mind if I call you Shad?
Sure.
Cool. So firstly, Shad, why is it so difficult for me to find comedians to speak publicly on this issue?
No one wants to be the guy getting arrested. It's one of those things you never know if it's going to happen until it happens.
Right. And how do you know what the rules are when it comes to what you're allowed to say on stage?
When we go to China, it's pretty obvious. We know not to talk about the 3 T's. Don't talk about Taiwan, Tiananmen, Tibet. But in Hong Kong, we don't know what the rules are. Right now, there is no strict rule of censorship. They're just making it up as they go. And that's the confusing part. It's kind of just based on what we see in the news.
Tell me what the crackdown is like on the ground. Will authorities show up to the shows?
We have had a lot of comedy shows getting shut down. Every now and then, the authorities will show up, but usually when they do, it's not really to do with material. They'll show up and be like, oh, we found out your fire license has expired. Or, oh, you're technically only licensed to sell beverage, but we saw somebody with some food.
What do you think the CCP finds so threatening about stand-up comedy?
I think what upsets the government is that in all those clips, people are laughing. The crowds are usually big and they're usually all laughing.
Even comedians overseas are feeling the CCP's wrath. Despite being based in the UK, Chinese-Malaysian comedian Nigel Ng and his alter ego Uncle Roger were cancelled by Weibo, and the comedian banned from any future tours to China after he posted this clip.
Uncle Roger gonna get cancelled after tonight. Nice, great, good report for Uncle Roger, okay? Dear CCP, Uncle Roger, good comrade, good comrade. Don't make him disappear, please.
So, what's really interesting about the clip that supposedly led to Uncle Roger's being censored in China is that it wasn't even posted on his Chinese social media account. The clip was posted on his Twitter and Instagram account. So this shows that Chinese censors are not only monitoring what's being said domestically, it is now actively monitoring what's being said about China abroad.
So Shad, I was wondering if you could give me some advice. I have one COVID joke that does pretty well in Australia. I started thinking about how this virus travelled all the way from China and found me, a Chinese person, in Australia. When I finally got COVID, I was like, it's okay. You're home now. I'll take care of you. And so I did. I took it in, showed it a good time, took it to some nightclubs, some cruise ships, some old folks' homes. Would this joke be allowed in China?
Oh, no. China has 100% no COVID policy.
Damn. So what do you think the future of comedy in China looks like?
It'll probably be a little bleak. Comedy will become big, but the type of comedy will be very narrow. Nothing too edgy.
The future of China's comedy scene after House has generated a lot of discussions, and people have wondered whether China will return to an era that knows no laughter.
Interesting. Well, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in the future, but after doing this story, I do know one thing's for certain. Tim Chan is a comedian in Hong Kong and he joins me now. Tim, you've got 50k followers on Instagram and have gone viral quite a few times, so your comedy is incredibly popular. You also managed to avoid getting cancelled though, so do you have a strategy for this?
Oh, thank you for those followers, and I don't really have the strategy to avoid this because I don't know what it is the political correctness standards in this time. For example, if I talk about some topic about people who wear the mask, which is still but during 2020 it is so offensive. But for now they just think, oh, everyone just don't put on the mask. Why you laugh at that? Something like that. So I don't really have the strategy to avoid it because different timing they have different political correctness standard.
Tim, your style is very observational. We have a clip here of you talking about sneezing.
I ask you a question. When is your greatest, the most satisfying sneeze last time? What I want to do is all the saliva just come out of my mouth. And I don't care what other people think. Or you just say something loudly in the NPR. Or just say, oh yeah, it's your multi station. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Do you ever worry that topics like sneezing or small talk could become sensitive in the future?
About sneezing, I think I don't worry about that bit. But I think, yeah, the same point is if I believe something that I think that is so funny, I stand by it. This is the true artist need to be about.
Your most viewed videos are either in Cantonese or about Chinese and Hong Kong culture. Would you say that audiences where you are hungry for stand-up?
Yeah. Because in Hong Kong, people don't laugh so much. People are so rude, and they because Hong Kong people, they are very efficient, and then we are very busy every day, and then after the work we are so stressed out. So we love the entertainment. Every time I put on the show, and it sell very fast. So I think Hong Kong people are hungry for that.
And you're about to go tour to New York, the UK and Kuala Lumpur. What kind of changes do you make to your material when you go overseas?
Basically, I do the same material, but every time I go traveling, I go there and then I will find something different between Hong Kong and that place. And then I think, oh, that is so funny. For example, when I went to Taiwan, Taipei, and then their bike if it's not work, the people will turn the seat backward. And then, oh, for a foreigner, we don't know about it. This is so good for them, but for a foreigner, we don't know about it. So we will do it. We will ride the bike backward.
You recently came to Australia as well. What do you think about the Australian sense of humour?
I think Australian audience are very good. Melbourne is like my second home because since 2017, every year I go to Melbourne Comedy Festival, so I meet those audience every year, like my second home. So they laugh so hard.
Thank you so much, Tim. I look forward to seeing you here in Australia soon.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to see you too.
They're used by millions of people every day, but how much do we really know about the humble chopstick?
As Brendan Wan explains, there's more to Asia's most popular utensil than meets the eye.
Yeah, keep them coming. When it comes to chopsticks, the stereotypes know no bounds. I mean, who could forget this fashion ad from Dolce & Gabbana? Or this lame attempt to sell more burgers? A third of the world uses chopsticks every day. For Asian households, it's a staple that most of us don't think twice about. But growing up, I did wonder why my family ate with these things. I mean, how did an entire civilization decide that a pair of sticks was the way to go? To answer that, we need to go back thousands of years to Yinshu in Henan province and the capital of the Shang dynasty.
Chopstick began possibly 7,000 years ago. Archaeologists found about 46 bowl-made chopsticks. And they were much thicker than the chopsticks that we see today. It was believed that to be used to handle food and to taste the food in the pot and so on.
So early chopsticks were only used for cooking or fishing things out of boiling pots. It's believed they weren't used for eating until much later, around 400 AD. Thanks to old mate Confucius, who thought knives were violent and would remind people of war.
As a gentleman or as a superior person, morally superior person, then it's not civilized enough to if you use knives on the table. So knives were supposed to be inside the kitchen and used by the chef or the cooks.
As trade and migration spread throughout Asia, so did the use of chopsticks, with each country putting their own unique spin on them. The seemingly simple pair of sticks are loaded with ancient symbolism.
The rich and the powerful would use jade and ivory. For the rich families, that were a status symbol for their wealth and the status.
Whoa, hold up. Chopsticks are a symbol of wealth and status? And I'm just learning about this now? All I do is win, no matter what. Got money. It was also believed that using silver chopsticks would detect arsenic, with silver turning black if food had been poisoned. Surprisingly enough, this wasn't always a reliable method. And as for chopsticks etiquette, don't even get me started. No. 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 Just stop. Look, there's a lot of rules to this thing, and there's a correct way to use them. Apparently, the closer your fingers are to the tip of the chopsticks, the longer you'll remain unmarried. So just to keep my mum cool and chill, I'm gonna hold them the correct way. Okay, cool mum? Yeah?
Brendan Wan joins us now. Brendan, welcome back to China Tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me on again.
Hey, do you really eat everything with chopsticks?
I can only have chopsticks with Asian food. If it's European food or non-Asian food, eating it with chopsticks is just, it kind of just feels weird and wrong, to be honest. So yeah, just keep chopsticks with having it with Asian food, that's fine.
Yeah, 100%, I agree with that. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten with chopsticks though? Because my mum's attempted to eat a meat pie quite successfully, so I'm trying to get to that level.
Well, I tried the thing where you eat potato chips or Cheetos with your chopsticks, and yeah, that just felt wrong, because like, just get your hands dirty, just, you know, use your fingers, it's fine.
That's really good advice. You also have some advice around marriage, because marriage is associated with chopsticks. What's the deal there?
Well, apparently, the closer your fingers are to the bottom of the chopsticks, the less likely you are to get married. So I don't know who made the rules, but you got to keep it at the normal length to get married in a normal time frame.
Well, I have a rebuttal for that, because my family told me that the higher you hold it, the later you'll get married. So I'm trying to hold it right at the tip so I can stay single for longer.
Hey, my family actually told me a different story. So the longer you hold, the longer you live. Apparently, we have all different kinds of versions in different households.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Brendan, for joining us. I really enjoyed the chat, and that package was great.
Thanks for having me on.
And those graphics that you saw there were done by Andrew Harry Harrison.